Welcome to another episode of the Loadout Music Podcast, featuring in-depth interviews with a wide range of music personalities, from Rock and Roll Hall of Famers to Grammy winners and today's rising stars. Recorded in St. Louis, Missouri, now here's your host, Aaron Perlitz of Atomic Junction.
Welcome back to the Loadout Music Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Aaron Perlitz. You know, they say that true country music is dead these days. Well, that is except for a select few artists still dedicated to the craft. One of those artists is my guest today. She is Anna Wescoat, and her 2024 album, World Famous, is a testament to that spirit. We welcome Anna to the show. Anna, how are you today?
I'm doing well. Thank you, Aaron, for having me.
You are welcome. So you're from Florida, right? The Panhandle?
I'm a Florida gal. Yes, sir.
Where in Florida do you reside?
Born and raised in Havana, which is right outside the Tallahassee, the capital. So, yeah, right up North Florida area, right by the Florida-Georgia line.
Spent plenty of time in the Redneck Riviera there, but we try not to speak the words Florida Georgia line unless it's in an incredibly negative context here. So that's
funny.
yeah. Well, you know, it's a pleasure having you on the show today. So at what time in your life did music become a thing? Did you say to yourself, wow, you know, this is something I'm gonna pursue as a career?
You know, I didn't make that shift till about 5 or 6 years ago. I've been playing music all my life since I was 3 or 4 years old, and I play so many instruments through my growing up. Learned 31 instruments now, but so it's been my whole life playing music. But it didn't become a career thing till about actually 6 years ago next month that I started gigging full time as a solo artist and performer. So, yeah, fairly recent, but.
Yeah. Well, what was it though that kind of led you to believe I can make a living doing this?
So what was happening is that, you know, I grew up playing in church and everything and singing with my family and doing the whole Southern gospel and singing 3-part harmony and everything. And somebody came to an event we were doing where we were all singing together, and they asked me, you know, would you be willing to perform for an event that we're throwing together? We're opening a new restaurant and such and such. And so I agreed to it, and I played, and I had so much fun. And then they decided, well, would you like to come back and play when the restaurant opens? I'm like, well, sure. And it became kind of a regular thing. And then out of nowhere, like 3 months after that, they closed. And I was like, man, I don't want to stop doing this. I'm having so much fun. And I was getting better at it. And so my husband's like, well, why don't you reach out and see if there's live music anywhere else? And come to find out, there was a lot of live music venues around us. So, I mean, one thing led to another, and I ended up becoming the one-woman band around my area and amassed, I don't know, close to 100 different venues now in the Panhandle. So, yeah, it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, but it's not certainly an easy road to take when you decide you're going to do this.
No, definitely not, especially because I have kids and I homeschool them too. So I'm a very busy gal. But honestly, I mean, it's a blessing because I love music. It's who I am, and to be able to play and make a living at it, it's not lost on me that's a rare thing, especially these days in this economy. That I'm able to make a living at it it's a huge blessing for me. I love it.
Now, you know, of course, when we all start playing music, we typically tend to kind of lean on covers, I imagine.
Yeah.
And so when you talk a little bit about your influences. I mean, when I hear you play your original music, I hear Patsy, Cline, and I hear Loretta Lynn, and I hear things like that. But what did you kind of come up on when you were growing up outside of church music?
Yeah, so a lot of what I grew up on was Southern gospel, but also a lot of bluegrass. Because my sister, she played fiddle, and their fiddle group played everything from Charlie Daniels, Vassar Clements, Ricky Skaggs, and all that. So I've listened to a lot of that kind of stuff growing up. And then in my teenage and college years, that's when I started really like a world of country music kind of opened up for me. And I started, digging deep into the old school country because that's what I really like. I kind of resonated with a lot of those stories. That's kind of my own personal writing style, is something that has a story, that has some substance to it. And so everybody that you said already, Patsy, Loretta, certainly artists like George Jones, Merle Haggard. I love anything from the 60s and 70s, those harmonies like the Mamas and the Papas, and love John Denver. He's one of my big ones. John Prine. I mean, I have a really vast bunch of music that I listen to, but those are some of my biggest influences for sure.
And it's funny that you mentioned John Prine and John Denver because, there's this kind of disconnect between Nashville
Mhm.
and the rest of country music in that they don't there seems to be a lack of recognition that people like the John Prines of the world or the Jerry Jeff Walkers of the world um, have such a resounding influence on country music. But I know that kind of my personal favorite songwriter is a guy named Ray Wiley Hubbard, and
Oh,
Ray would rather not spend any time with Nashville record executives. But it
yeah,
is interesting that you mentioned those two to me because they have people like that have had a huge influence
huge.
on
A lot
country
more than
music.
people realize, for sure. Yeah.
I mean, even if you think about some of the country music, a lot of it that was made in the 70s, there was
Hmm.
still that kind of there was a fine line between what I would call pop country music and
Yeah,
kind of country rock, but a lot of the
sure.
most popular music made by like, Waylon and Willie and Merle Haggard still had a lot of roots in rock and roll music as well.
Oh, definitely. Yes. And I love all three of those guys too. But but like as far as like the writing style, John Prine is like in my top
Yeah.
three for and John Denver as well. And I mean, I love the like I said, the substance and the stories to songs. I feel like that's a lot of what's missing today with country in particular, is that, it just doesn't have the meat and the meaning that it used to have. So
And
that's a big deal.
do you think that's because music artistry and I think you could even equate this into art in general has started to lean a little too much into technology as opposed to storytelling, whereas pop country and a lot of music in general that's become very popular is very
Mhm.
Sith oriented, kind of like the 80s.
Oh, sure. Oh yeah. There's a lot. There's a lot of stuff that, and here's the problem: is I'll turn on like country radio hits or today, or people will even tell me like when I'm pitching songs, which I don't do a lot of anymore, but they're like, "Well, go listen to what the top 40," and I'll listen, and they all sound the same. They all have that sort of, I guess, what they call the there's a term for it, but it's like it's a machine that just churns out sort of the same thing over and over, and it doesn't. To me, it doesn't really sound individual anymore. Like it just all kind of has this sort of, here's the recipe. We're just going to kind of, go with that for the same every single song. It's just got that sort of formula, is what they call it. That's the word I'm
Yeah.
looking for. Like I don't write like that, and to each their own. That's just not, to me. That's more ear candy than anything else. But that's not my personal taste. So I think it does have something to do with technology and the way that things are just easier that way, I guess, to mass produce, I guess you could say, or even like, God help us all, with AI starting to come into the scene. But there are people out there who are still writing genuine, pen to paper, like putting thought into what they're writing, and like I'm doing, playing all the instruments a lot of times myself because I'm
Yeah.
trying to keep it authentic. I think that's really important. And I think people relate to that, and they can tell what is authentic and what's not a lot of times, at least in my experience.
Yeah, I know in our band, my band, Atomic Junction,
Mm-hmm.
um, people even struggle to kind of classify
Mm.
music. You find this with, I remember listening the first time I ever heard Blackberry Smoke years and years ago,
Oh yeah.
they were talking about, are you guys country music? Are you rock and roll? And they're like, we just make music.
Thank you.
And they weren't interested in classifying it. And so, we get compared to anyone from like Lucero to, I don't know, to Reba McEntire, but then to someone told us we were the bastard love child of Reba McEntire and the Replacements, which I was like,
Ah,
all right, that's kind of cool. It's
there you go.
kind of like
That could be
post-punk.
your Spotify bio.
Yeah, I didn't even know what that meant, but I liked it.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk a little bit about world famous. I know our mutual friend Ben Jarrell
Mhm.
produced that. In fact, he introduced us. Um, Talk a little bit about, uh, at least in terms of what's streaming, that's your first record, right? Your first like official album.
It is the first official studio album. Yeah. I've got stuff that's on Spotify that I produced myself in like a home studio setup. But that is the first in studio, legit, like studio session musicians. And it's actually been mixed and mastered. in a professional way, like people know what they're doing, like that. Because Ben's awesome, and he, you can tell the difference in how that sounds versus some of my older stuff, just the quality of it, and he did a fantastic job getting from my head to what I wanted it to sound like. So I'm really proud of it.
Yeah, talk about that experience though. I know when we went in the studio, we had our songs incredibly baked, but it sounds like, you had a vision for what you wanted, but it wasn't necessarily fully baked yet.
So, I mean, me and Ben were friends before we ended up doing this album. We'd written a lot of stuff together. We written a couple songs that are on the album. And so he kind of knew my heart for authentic, true country sounding music. And so, his whole thing when he went in was he was making notes about, this is what I want this to sound like, this is what she wants this part to be. And then I went in, I'm a musician too. And so I was in the studio and these guys are playing this live. So this is how we did it. They're in one room playing the instruments. I'm in another room doing the vocals. And if I'd hear something and be like, oh, let's try it this way, or can you play this part? Can y'all play this in harmony? We had some of those conversations. And these guys, they're such pros. I mean, I don't know, you probably hear that a lot because this is Nashville musician, but these guys are like really seasoned pros. I mean, we're talking like country music Hall of Fame pedal steel player here that knows what he's doing and can turn it like that. Like he can hear, like I can just say, can you make it sound like this? And he knows exactly what I'm talking about. And you can't ask for a better studio experience than that. I mean, especially for the first time being in a studio with people that have done this a million times and I'm a newbie. It was fantastic. We did the whole thing in 2 days. So, I mean, I feel like I couldn't have asked for a better experience than that.
Was it weird, while you may have started off learning music in church, you're a classically trained musician. Was it strange having other people play even the instruments on your record?
Not for me, no. Just because I think the classically trained part of it actually helped me with that, because I knew all about, the Nashville number system and all those different things that these guys are using already. And I knew that, for one, I knew they were going to play as soon as, I started talking to them and started hearing what they were doing. I knew I was going to love it. I mean, from the very first chord, I'm like, oh yes, this is going to be fun. So for me, it was really just a chance to sit back and relax and listen to just, oh my gosh, I can't believe my music is coming to life. Especially as a one-woman band who's always out playing every single instrument by myself. It was really fun to sit back there and just listen to these guys create something. Like I said, it's weird. Like I hear it in my head and then hearing them play it. It's just a unique experience, man. I don't know how else to really describe that, but it's awesome.
And so, when you hear the final masters to this, and for me, I don't know about you, but I felt like there was a huge jump before the songs were mastered.
Yeah.
There was just like, I describe it to people like, it's like you take a photo and you turn it into a 3D photo. All of a sudden, it just kind of gives it that volume that it didn't have before.
Sure.
But what was it like when you first sat down and heard the masters and you're like, holy shit, this is what was it?
That first holy moment was sitting in the captain's chair in the studio, and he's playing back something that he's like, I think this is going to be the final take of this. And he had kind of mixed and tweaked my vocal a little bit, was like, here, tell me what you think about this. And I just I was holding back tears, man, listening to that first song. I'm like, dang, I sound like that. But it was just really, really awesome hearing, like I said, something that I've had in my head for so long. I wanted to put out a country record forever. I mean, I've been sitting on some of these songs for years, and hearing that come to life, especially once I heard the master and he's sending me these masters back one at a time. And I'm just thinking, man, it's hard to believe that it was my music, if that makes any sense. Especially because after I left the studio, Ben had a couple other musicians come in, add some harmonies. We did some fiddle stuff that I didn't get to hear when I was there. And so in hearing those fiddles in harmony, I think it was Do You or Don't You, where he had them harmonizing. I'm just like, dang, I feel like this is something that would have come out if Patsy Cline were still around. And that made me just uber duper proud. Like, I don't know. I know that sounds corny, but like, I'm just so proud to have something authentic to who I am as an artist and not trying to create something that I feel like other people want from me, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, I know exactly what you mean. When we did our last record with Greg Griffith up at Peacedale Studios.
Mhm.
He had Jimmy Wallace from Nashville overdub keys on everything, and to hear the impact of keys on just the overall
Yeah,
sonic quality of the record after the fact. We had done everything else ourselves
yeah,
as a band, but it was pretty remarkable to me, and I will always be incredibly thankful to both Greg and to Jimmy for what they did to complement and take the
I
sound to another level. So I
sure.
think I think I got a feeling for what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about you are a one-woman band. A friend of mine, Lincoln Durham, used to be out of Austin. Now he's up in Boston, but
Mhm.
he does that, and he'll be playing uh, drums,
Mhm.
guitar, vocals, harmonica in one show.
Yep.
Um, Talk a little about when people come to see your show, and you play out a lot. And I want
Yeah.
to talk a little bit about that next. But what is the experience like of seeing you when you play?
Well, personally, specifically in this area, one, there's not a lot of female performers where I'm at least not solo performers. And then two, there's not anybody else that I have met so far in the 6 years almost of doing this that does live looping the way that I do it. And what I mean by that is you see a lot of people looping where it takes 5 to 6 minutes to set the song up. I don't do it that way. So I have a unique way that I like to do it to where I'll get the song going. I'll get a verse and a chorus established, or sometimes a lot of songs people don't realize are only 4 chords the whole way through anyway. And so I'll get that verse set up. I'll get my drum track usually is first. Every now and then I'll let that kind of come later to kind of surprise people. It's kind of a wow factor, but and then I'll set up my rhythm, and then I have an octaver that does my guitar and bass. And so I'll get the whole song going. So it's not like you're having to wait forever to hear the music. It already sounds like a full band when I'm into the chorus. So basically, my setup is very similar to what you were talking about. I use harmonicas, I use keys, I have my acoustic guitar and electric guitar. I'll do the bass thing with the octaver, and then I've got the pedal that layers my voice in real time. So I've got harmonies going as well. And then sometimes, just for kicks and giggles, I'll bring another instrument with me too, and banjo or mandolin or something to kind of just spice things up. But I feel like it just kind of gives me a little bit of a leg up, especially as a solo artist. And there's a lot of venues who prefer bands. It just gives something unique that people who are sitting out there will see me showing up. So many times I'll show up with 20 different instruments and they're like, what is happening? It's just this one girl. And then I'll set up and it sounds like it sounds like a band.
Yeah.
So it's really cool to see the reaction from people when they realize what I'm doing. And they're like, wait, is all that? I get this out all the time. Are you doing all that live? And I'm like, yes, I don't use any tracks. I don't use anything that's pre-recorded. It's all done right there. And so I think it's pretty neat. And I've kind of, like I said, that's my little unique setup that I call myself a one-woman band, because that's just my niche now. That's what I'm known for now. So
Very
I've enjoyed
cool.
it up through the years.
Very cool. Well, I know you. I was looking at your website. I know you have a lot of shows you play.
Yeah.
Where in 2025, where are you be playing the predominance of those shows? Where can people catch you for the most part?
For the most part, North Florida area. I do play out in Georgia and Alabama some, then back and forth to Tennessee all the time. But for the most part, anywhere in the North Florida area. So I could go as far as, Santa Rosa Beach, Destin, Orlando, Tallahassee, then some of the smaller communities like Mariana, Dothan. I mean, I'm here, there, and everywhere. I'll be at the TMMR Fest in Hurricane Mills, Tennessee, in the middle of May for the at the Redlands Ranch, which I'm super excited about. So, I mean, it just depends on where you are. But if you're in the Florida, Georgia, Bama area, anywhere right in there, you can come see me somewhere.
Awesome. Anna Wescoat, thank you so much for being with us today on the Loadout. It's been a pleasure having you. You can stream all your music, pretty much all the primary streaming channels, and your website address in case anyone wants to look you up there.
AnnaWestcoatMusic.com.
All right, Anna, thank you so much for being on the Loadout Music Podcast with us today.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Loadout Music Podcast, hosted by Atomic Junction frontman Aaron Perlett. Find all of our episodes and more at loadoutmusic.com.